Steam is in the process of getting debanked. Or at the very least, that's what it's looking like. So, some of you that do not live in Canada, the European Union, England, Japan, Australia, or the US may have noticed recently that when you tried to purchase a game on Steam using PayPal, you'd get an error message saying that this form of payment is not available right now. I got it myself, as I'm of course a Norwegian, and at the time I figured, okay, well it's probably some sort of bug, right? Because they mentioned that they were working to fix the issue, so some sort of error with PayPal or the bank or one of the countless intermediaries between you making a payment and the company actually receiving the money. Fair enough. But now, Valve has come out with a more official statement indicating that this is not a bug, this is a feature. As they say here, PayPal use on Steam is currently unavailable in my currency. Why? In early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that the acquiring bank for payment transactions in certain currencies was immediately terminating the process of any transactions related to Steam. They would continue to be able to do transactions in Euro, Canadian dollars, Great British pounds, Japanese yens, Australian dollars, and US dollars, but everyone else was shit out of luck. This no doubt came as a rather massive surprise to Steam as well, which is why they initially seemed to treat it as some sort of a bug, as they presumably engaged in communication and negotiations with PayPal to try and figure out what on God's good earth was happening here. And they clearly didn't arrive at much in the way of a conclusion. So, what exactly has happened? Well, PayPal notified Valve that their acquiring bank for payment transaction has decided to not do any transactions related to Steam. So, one might easily assume, because it seems sensible, that when you make a payment with PayPal or a credit card or whatever, that it's a fairly straightforward transaction, right? You swipe your credit card at the hairdresser's and you simply transfer $50 from your account to the hairdresser's account, right? No, not at all. There are a whole hecking hell of a lot of intermediaries in between you and the merchant actually accepting the money. One of these is the acquiring bank. As the name suggests, this is the money that actually gets your money when you are making this transaction. They act as an intermediary. So instead of the money going from you directly to the merchant, it happens to come through the acquiring bank, who then provides various services like fraud, prevention, etc., and they actually take the money before then passing it on again. So without an acquiring bank, there is no way to actually make the payment because you can't simply transfer the money straight up to Steam in this case. And with PayPal, of course, we have another intermediary. So it sounds like the bank that PayPal uses to do this with Steam has decided to terminate their relationship. This then leads us to a very big question again as to why. Why would the bank do this? What possible reason would a bank have to go, hey, Steam, I know we manage literally millions, if not billions of dollars in transactions for you every year, and take our slice, of course, but we really hate you now, and so we're going to only do certain currencies. Well, the certain currencies part is our first hint, because why would you accept US dollars but not whatever they use in Brazil or China or whatever, right? Well, it's because it lessens the blow, that's why. PayPal can then go to Steam and say, yeah, this sucks, but don't worry, we're not going to take away your main markets, and I'm sure we can arrive at some sort of arrangement. Don't worry, just swallow this pill and everything will get better. Then, in 2 or 3 years' time, they'll come back and go, yeah, we can't do Australian dollars anymore, but I'm sure you understand. Again, we'll continue working the problem, don't worry. Couple more years, yeah, Japanese yen's gonna, and so on, as this will be a long process to isolate and, in my opinion, probably attempt to debank Steam outright. Now, who would do this? The only ones that come to mind is probably the card companies right now. As we know already that Visa and Mastercard via their, in essence, puppet collective shout, decided to lash out against adult games on Steam very, very effectively. I do not believe for a single instance that the Australian feminists really affected these card companies and made them do something they didn't want to. They've probably been targeting Steam for quite some time, and there's a good reason for that as well, as Steam has now become an enormous player, one of, if not the largest players on a worldwide level. It dominates the entirety of the gaming market. And so Visa and Mastercard may be interested in trying to get their name somewhat scrubbed from a platform that has and does still host a lot of adult content, which they clearly do not like for, I believe, primarily political and moral reasons. And then, of course, PayPal refused to play ball as well. When Visa and Mastercard said, "Oh no, we didn't do this, we haven't done any of this," and PayPal, Steam, responded with, No, you did. You came into my shop and threatened to break my windows if I didn't pay you. I would not put it past these companies to be doing a little bit of strong-arming here, playing a bit rough, communicating to Steam and anyone else that there are consequences for stepping out of line. Now, I don't think Steam is necessarily a good target for this, because Gabe Newell's big, beautiful heart is still beating, and long may it continue, because the moment he keels over, we are fucked. And Steam is absolutely in a position to simply begin managing their own payments. There have already been quite a lot of rumbling around this. Elon mentioned X Payment, for example. Steam is absolutely in a position to begin creating their own infrastructure surrounding this, and with recent movements in the US, such as the right to fair banking, or access to equal banking, for example, and various legislations now being put forward before governments across the world, these card companies are living on a little bit of borrowed time right now. They might simply be attempting to get whatever they can through now, whilst they still have leverage, before they'll be essentially forced to back down. Alternatively, this might also simply be a far more large-scale play. Assuming that none of the legislative measures will actually ever be permanent or affect them, they're moving to solidify their monopoly, and determine outright what people are and are not allowed to spend their money on, depending upon whatever their standards are at the time. As you may also mention and remember, Steam recently added a 15th point to their terms of service, where they essentially said outright that if something doesn't meet the terms of service of their payment processors and their collaborators, their companions in this payment processing market, then it wasn't allowed on Steam. That was already Steam bending over backwards, simply saying, okay, Visa, Mastercard, whatever your terms of service are, they're ours too now, okay? We've bent on over, we've torn our asshole open, and we've taken everything you can give to us. Are we cool? Visa and Mastercard said no. That's my current working theory, as this is now going well beyond merely the censorship of adult titles and into the realms of a straight-up massive coup in practice, where these card companies are attempting to extend their influence way beyond anyone who simply, makes money go from A to B should ever do or should ever have. This also, by the way, is why I believe that the only real long-term solution to this problem is going to be a regulatory action. As much as one can easily hate upon the government when it comes to regulations and their infinite need to constantly grow larger and more useful, or useless over time, even if Steam manages to make their own payment processor, well, they will still require some banks to work with them, unless they're going to make one, and as we can see right now, it does appear that the card companies can get to the banks as well. Interesting times ahead. Very interesting times indeed. As whilst I do expect Steam to fight back on this, it remains to be seen how effective that fight will be. If there's anyone who does stand a chance, though, it probably is Steam. And if there's anyone who is going to be willing to take that fight, it is also probably going to be Steam. So take this black pill with a little bit of hope as well. Although, man, I'm not even going to start listing the sheer number of implications that the card companies being able to simply dictate to anyone and everyone within entertainment what is and is not acceptable is going to be. Especially as, again, the banks themselves, well, they can't operate without the card companies. The card companies have become our payment institutions in total. They're clearly beginning to flex their muscles somewhat. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope to see you all again soon. Then, have a good day.